Emerson once wrote, "A foolish consistency is the hobgoblin of little minds." It wasn't talking about us. It couldn't have been. It's like 190 years ago. So I just bought gold for the 120th consecutive month. That's 10 years of buying, kicking off June of 2013. I was buying before that. My first purchase was in 2008, but in 2011, when the price took off, I sat a few years out. That didn't last long, though. I can now officially say I've been on a 10-year run. If you're looking for precious metals, hit up SD Bullion. New customers can even get gold and silver at spot price. sdbullion.com/new. So being real here, some of those months the fever caught me, I bought a little bit more than one coin. Sometimes I bought a lot more. I've talked before about those 15% drops. More recently, some of the purchases were collectibles. So they weren't really scheduled, but they did still happen in that month. Now we're going to ignore all of that for now. This is more about slow and steady consistency and where that leads. The bulk of those purchases in that time were quarter-ounce American Gold Eagles. That was my minimum buy. So 120 quarter-ounce Eagles would be 30 ounces of gold. And this is what 30 ounces of gold looks like. It's kind of fun to have a visual representation of hitting a goal. Not everything works like that. So if we wanted to get into dollar figures, well, that's roughly $60,000 saved using money that I was otherwise wasting or not making. And really, I think that alone is an interesting story, and one I think that's a pretty good example of what most people can do with enough time and persistence. Let me add a few more layers to this, though, because I think it's more interesting if I bring in a little bit of the related stuff that I was doing at the time, because somebody always brings up opportunity costs. Like, just think of all the other things you could have done had you not bought that gold. Well, the gold was the actual motivation. It's kind of a moot point, but let's just get into it anyway. I was actually buying silver in the time frame also. To me, they're different metals, they're different things, but the intentions were pretty much the same. The vendors for gold and silver were the same. Now, my story with silver probably has too many of its own layers to just drop it in as a subplot here. We'll just scratch the surface. Well, in that time frame, I stacked a few hundred ounces of silver as well. 540 ounces to be exact, or exact-ish. I had some collectible pieces in there as well. I had that up until August of 2020 when I sold it. I sold most of that silver. I rolled it into gold, Bitcoin, and Ether. I sold most of that crypto not too long after that. I rolled that profit back into gold. That was after taxes. So that bet more or less doubled the gold that I would have had I just made that minimum purchase for 10 years. Okay, that probably seems like a pretty wild departure from the plan, but really it wasn't. Silver wasn't performing at the time. I didn't have high hopes for it right then. And crypto felt like it was about to go bananas. It was just kind of switching horses to me. I was moving capital from one asset to another. Now, at the time, it felt like a bet, but it was a bet that I was making with capital that I saved in the background in a way that wasn't painful, a way that I enjoyed. And if we're being completely honest, I was a little bit underwhelmed with silver at the time. The reason that I don't see any of that as a departure from the plan is that the gold that I was accumulating allowed some of those options. I don't see gold itself as an investment. I see it more as a foundation, but I was able to make those extra bets or investments, whatever we're calling them, without any hesitation because I had the gold. And I was selling something similar that I'd built up off the books. Off the books meaning when my bride logged into our online banking account, there wasn't a line item for silver. It wasn't something we were relying on. It was just more something I snuck in over the years. Now, I know I've already used numbers, and that always muddies things up. I'm not going to go into that real deep here on this one, but I started back on those monthly gold purchases when gold was around $1,300 an ounce. So I did pretty well in terms of current spot price. I didn't do quite as well on the silver, but at this point, it really doesn't matter because I turned that into crypto, and then I turned that into gold. Some of it anyway. So those two things working together puts my effective cost for the gold somewhere in the vicinity of $1,000 an ounce. Now, that isn't my cost basis. I had to pay taxes on the crypto gain. So if I were to sell the gold today, I wouldn't owe capital gains on half of what everything's worth. But really, that's not the point. That's just in case there's a taxman out there who's watching this, taking notes. So there are smart people like Dave Ramsey and Mark Cuban out there saying buying gold is a mistake. They're looking at it from a different lens though. They see it as capital that could have paid down a credit card or could have been invested in the squatty potty, depending on who you're looking at. I'm simply looking at this as drip savings that became significant over time. There's a saying about the unanticipated blow hitting heaviest, but conventional advice is built around expected outcomes. Paying down debt, having investments that make gains, that's great. There's nothing I'm going to say that would ever be against that, but savings are important as well. It'd be like three legs of the proverbial stool. Income, I suppose, would be a fourth leg. Now, personally, I work on all those legs. I'm no Dave Ramsey or Mark Cuban, but buying gold for 120 consecutive months didn't prevent me from doing other things. So if we zero in here, that was 120 consecutive months of purchases made with money I was otherwise wasting, and we add in an investment that I wouldn't have otherwise made, rolled that back into gold. Well, just looking at those minimum purchases and what I made from that investment turned gold, well, that resulted in six figures of savings in dollar terms easily, twice the capital that I put in. Everyone is going to have their own take. I'm not trying to convince anyone what's right or wrong, but I'm personally happy with where it ended up. So let's call it good there. Hit us up in the comments with your own stories, plans, ups, downs, whatever. This is a safe space. I would love to see what you're up to. And then while you're in the comments, be sure to hit the like button if you found any of this interesting. Be sure you're subscribed with notifications turned on if you'd like to see more on the topic. And if you're still here, thanks again for watching. I always appreciate your time. Take care.